tell us a little bit about herself and how she came to Islam, and then just to develop a topic.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, I've met most of you. It's good to see you this morning, and I want to thank NEMA and the organizers for inviting me, and for all of you for being so gracious and making me feel part of the group. Even though
please keep the microphone in front of you.
To talk.
Okay. No, it's okay, but close. Close, okay. Oh, yes.
Is this one better?
This with the wire.
Hello?
Yes.
So the $365,000 question of the day is, how did you become Muslim? Everyone was asking me this for the last couple of days, and I was like, wait. So that story started in 2002, or I became actually Muslim in 2002, but it was like 3 months before. I was working in Washington, D.C. in a law firm, and we often worked late at night, and our company contracted with the taxi service to take us home in the evenings because we often worked overtime. And it happened that the driver that I started to use on a regular basis, because it happened the first few times I kept getting him.
Please, can you speak loudly?
I could stand up, but it'd be better you can see me. You're pretty far back. So anyways, the driver happens to be the first person that I ever met who was Muslim in 41 years of my life. I had never heard the first thing about Islam. I didn't know anything of the word Muslim. I didn't know anything about it at all. And so my introduction to it was a Somali taxi driver. And it turned out that I ended up taking his phone number to call him anytime I needed him, because it was comfortable. He didn't annoy me. He didn't ask me, too much questions like taxi drivers often do, especially when you're a foreigner living in another country. What country you are from? So he became my regular driver, and this went on for a year. And finally, one day we were in the car and we were driving home, and we were having a discussion. I can't exactly remember what it was now, but it was the catalyst for how I finally started to try to figure out what's this Islam stuff. So he said to me in our conversation, he got frustrated and he said, "You don't understand me. You don't understand me." There you go.
Oh, no, sorry.
Slower.
Sorry. Aishah, what it is, there's a group translated from English to Spanish, another group translated from English to French. So if you can just pause, give him a chance to... Sorry.
So on this particular evening, he was frustrated with me because it seemed I didn't understand him. So I said, I got out of the car and I got home, and my mind was just running with, I was disturbed because in the 1 year that I'd known him, there had never been any tension in our conversations, and he hadn't overtly discussed Islam with me at all. He just, the thing that impressed me about him from the beginning was always his manners, This is the actual introduction to Islam, the Muslim manners, and he was always so polite and caring and considerate, and I mean, it was refreshing, and not somebody just trying to hit on me, So I was really challenged to figure out what it was that had happened that night. What caused this rift, it seemed, suddenly between us. And the only thing I could think about was that it had something to do with his religion. So I sat down on my computer, I opened up Yahoo, I typed Islam. And over the last couple of days, it's been interesting hearing some of your stories too, that how so many of us, our introduction to Islam has come through the internet. MashaAllah, And so I typed Islam, and of course, the search results were volumes of pages. And then the next thing is, okay, what do you read? And of course I didn't know, but I just started reading. And then I started printing. And I was reading and printing and reading and printing, and I ended up with a box beside my bed, full, and it was even, I even got to the point where I got binders, and I got tabs and yellow highlighters, and I mean, it was just like 3 months intensive Islam, reading nonstop. I was reading on the bus, coming out of the office, on the elevator. I just couldn't get it enough. It was insane. I would fall asleep sometimes on my bed, wearing my work clothes with these papers all over the place in the middle of it. And I would wake up like 4 o'clock in the morning surrounded by Islam. It's like, what's going on here? After 3 months, it just, I knew what the Shahadah was supposed to be, but I also was taking the understanding from my reading that it should be made, I mean, you can make it to your intention in your heart, it's between you and God, but to make it openly, you know. So finally, to the joy of my taxi driver friend, he got a call from me saying, I want to become Muslim. Can you help me? Oh my God, this guy was over the world happy, over the moon, you know? And so he arranged everything. He arranged the sheikh guy to come and talk with me, and we did the, at the time I was working in Washington, D.C., and who was the, Anwar Hajjaj. He's the one who gave me my Shahadah. He was at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. A lot of Muslims work there. And my Somali friend, he knew that. Mira is his name. And so they arranged for me to get a pass to come in for the Jummah prayer on a Friday, on April 19th, 2002. And that was the beginning of that. So then the next challenge was, I'd already worked 1.5 years at the law firm where I was working. And everybody there already knew me as a regular person, you know, with my regular clothes and everything. And after about 3 months, I was taking the decision to, you know, slowly start to change my wardrobe. And I knew that this was really going to be a huge challenge because I was working at, you know, one of the largest law firms in the country and a high-profile situation. But I knew what I was going to be for this firm actually was test, because they were also famous for their corporate diversity, corporate diversity. They received recently, at that time, some kind of an award for their corporate diversity. So I was like, I'm going to test this corporate diversity thing they got, you know. So I first started to make a search on the internet because I didn't know where to find some clothes. You know, I wanted to find something that I didn't want to look like a bag lady. You know, I wanted to look professional, like I always had, anyways. And it was going to be required of me, so it was exhaustive search on the internet, you know, looking at clothes. Then I finally found one that I liked, and I started ordering all this stuff, and I went crazy. You know, embarrassingly crazy. It was very bad. I gave a lot of it away in the end, alhamdulillah. But then I chose the timing. Actually, my boss was going to be on vacation, and I said, let's make it a little bit easier on him. The heat won't be so much. If I let everybody else get used to it first, and all he gets is phone calls and emails from in Puerto Rico. Hey, dude, do you know what's going on with your secretary? And that's how it went down. But it was really, really incredible because they passed the corporate diversity test with flying colors. It was the most incredible thing. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew that I was scared to death inside, but that I was 100% committed that that was what I wanted to do. And on the first day, the most incredible thing happened. I got to the front door, and this law firm has these huge, heavy, they're so heavy you can even push a button so that they can open automatically if you want, glass doors. And there I was, getting ready to walk in. I have my hand on the door to pull it open, and at the same time there's a small group of people coming from on the other door coming out. So the doors were opening simultaneously, right? I don't really see the people because I'm in my own space in the moment, right? But I heard one thing. Assalamu alaikum. I couldn't believe my ears. I didn't know that I don't know who it was even because it happened so fast. It was just in the moment. But I remember feeling. I remember feeling it was like God saying, "Welcome. You know, you're doing the right thing. I'm here with you. I'm beside you. You know." And I knew that I should answer him back. And I quickly looked over my shoulder, but I didn't really see exactly even who it was. And I don't even think it was somebody even from our firm. I think it was somebody maybe who was just there for a meeting and going out or something. I don't know. But then I said very fastly and answered back, but I don't even know if he heard me. Then I walked across the lobby. I got in the elevator, and the elevator is one that has mirrors. And I was the only one in the elevator. The elevator door closed, and there I was standing there looking at myself in the mirror thinking, oh my God. Oh my God. Breathe, you know. Because the 6th floor was coming fast and it was going to start. And it was an incredible day. A really incredible day. My phone, the emails, the people passing by where I sit, the looks. It's like, oh my God, you know, they were the same what I had. What happened to you? And you know, it's really funny because people don't realize what they're saying in a moment. You know, the reaction is just so astounding because for a year and a half they knew this other person, you know, the nice clothes, the nails and the makeup and the hair, and you know, everybody was happy about this person. So then I covered everything up and they're like, wait, what are you doing? Why you covered your hair? How you did that? One of the senior partners, he stopped by my desk and there's a glass partition and he rested his arms across the top of it like this. And he just looked at me and I said, go ahead, it's okay, ask. And he flat out said, what happened to you? He was so brave. It was a big dawah day, for sure. Then of course I got an email from my boss. Hey, what's going on? So I said, well, you'll see when you get back. Okay. So that was the start of it. And alhamdulillah, as it happened, 3 months later, just 3 months later, I went in the cafeteria late one afternoon, and I saw a co-worker there, a really tall guy named James. And he was sitting at a small table here, so I sat here, and I was taking a little bit of lunch. We had office talk, you know, and I stood up to leave. And I noticed when I stood up that on the corner of the table, folded neatly, was a kufi, the white cap that Muslim guys wear. And I stopped, and I looked down at it, and I looked at him, and I said, James, are you Muslim? And he said, no, but I've been reading about it, and I'm ready. I want to become Muslim, but I don't know what to do next. And I was like, subhanallah. I got a taxi driver friend. He knows exactly what to do. So I arranged everything in a conference room and brought in a lunch, and the taxi driver brought the sheikh, and we brought a friend, and we brought James, and we ate lunch together, and we let him ask questions. And he sat in front of us right there in the office and made his Shahadah. And we prayed together after. It was just the most incredible thing. And his face, I will never ever forget his face. You know, the light and the joy and the happiness. He was just glowing, you know. So that was really cool because he became kind of an inspiration to me. Because in the very, very first, I was a little bit discouraged because I was thinking, like maybe many of you, you would find a little bit of support. And the support issue, this is like the support issue is how my activism sort of began to evolve. Because in that first year, I was a little bit discouraged, and I found myself in the same situation, still searching out everything myself, learning how to pray, learning, you know, more about well, I had already read so much, but I had to separate everything in my brain, you know, and slow down a little bit because that's an issue. I remember one time I was crying. I was reading in my flat, and suddenly I found myself, oh my God, this is so much. How can I do this? It's too much, you know, but it's not really that it's so much, it's that I was just taking it so fast, you know. So this is a message also to readers. The information overload, I mean, the interest and the anticipation, it's still really great, but you're gonna, it's like you have to level off, and maybe you're gonna crash a little bit, you know, but you'll bounce back. but for me, I found myself disappointed a little bit in the Muslim community itself, and this was really hard to me because I grew up Baptist, raised Baptist, and my church community at home was such a blessing. You know, so supportive. It was like a giant family. You know, anybody who was sick, somebody was knocking on your door or calling you, or if they didn't see you in church on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, they would invite you to, if you needed a ride, to come Sunday evening. I mean, nobody ever let you fall through the cracks. And I remember on the afternoon that I made my Shahadah, there must have been 15 or 16 women came up to me and hugged me and kissed my face and offered to help me if I needed anything. And it was 6 months before one called me from the group. So this inspired me. I said, you know what, this happened to me for a reason, because God knows my heart. And I said to myself, okay, I'm not alone. It's not that I don't understand that God's beside me. I understand that. But I'm not alone in what I'm experiencing. And there's other people, there's other reverts out there. They're probably having the same feelings, going through the same things. They're like, hey, okay, I became Muslim, now what? You know. So I said, okay, I'll do this myself. And I went back to the internet. I went to Yahoo, created a group on Yahoo Groups, and this was in 2002, 2003, and I gave it a name. I called it Sisters for Dawah, and I made some kind of introduction. What intention was to try to help and support other revert sisters. I made it exclusively for just sisters because I didn't want to, I was just beginning, so I didn't want to cross any lines. And I started it and put it out there. And I waited, and suddenly I started getting requests for people that wanted to be members. And the first 7 people, I never forget it. I was sitting in Washington, D.C., and the first 7 women who requested membership to the group were sisters from South Africa. And I remember sitting there, I'm going, I'm in Washington, D.C. and South Africa? MashaAllah. and then they just kept coming, and we had Iceland and Malaysia, and Morocco, and all across the United States, and I was so surprised, you know. And from that, that's also helped me to continue in my personal growth, because they kept coming. But at the same time, I wanted to keep a limit because I didn't want to not know the people. So it stayed like just a little bit above 200. So, because I wanted them to feel connected to somebody, because I also needed to feel connected. I wanted to remember their names. I wanted to remember their stories and who they were from, where they were from, what their concerns were, and try to address them and let them feel like they weren't alone, basically, you know. One of the members, she's from Iceland. She's the only, when I saw she was from Iceland, I remember thinking, wow, there's Muslims in Iceland. And her story was that she was like the only one. And so there's so many other people out there just like us that are searching for that support system. And I think that this is, like I said, this is where I morphed into an activist, because I felt compassion for these other sisters. So I did this for a little while, and it also helped me to continue to grow in my Islam. And then I started writing. I had been writing since I was 5 years old, and everyone had asked me my Shahadah story so many times. So I made a pamphlet, front and back, and folded it, tri-folded it, you know. And I was invited to some conference, and I made pink ones and blue ones for guys and girls. And I gave out my little Shahadah story on that. And I used to keep it in my bag because I was working in DC, so I took the public system for transportation, the buses and the metro, and people would see me in my scarf, and they would ask me, "Are you Muslim?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I wear this for entertainment." It's like so. But, so I could give them the Shahadah story on paper, so that worked really great. So then I said, okay, let me put it on the internet. So then I bought a domain and I put it on the internet. And then I said, okay, that's working. Now I have a link here, because I just go here and you can read it. Then I started writing. And I started writing a series of sort of autobiographical stories, and it became known as Sister Aishah's Journey. And I would start each new story with Sister Aishah's Journey continues ... and whatever this chapter was. And the chapters started growing and growing, and they started circulating all over the internet, you know, and then the next thing I know, I'm becoming somehow known. And people are writing me and asking me things, or saying that they read some story that made them cry, or they read some story that made them start to pray again, or they read some story that brought them back closer to God. You know, I mean, I was just getting so overwhelmed with the responses. I was like, wow, this is working. So then I sort of drifted a little bit away from the support group, continuing to support them, but I was growing, you know. So the process grew. So I started the writing. Then I started to work for an organization that it was a civil and human rights activism. This is where my real getting on the ground started. I went to an event as a volunteer in DC, and just got my taste of, you know, the live in action kind of stuff, you know. I was like, oh, this is different. This isn't on the internet. This is paper and writing and words. No, this is pretty cool. So I started going to more and more events. And then I started walking around with the signs, and I started in the demonstrations and marching and shouting, and then my writing sort of morphed from personal stories to, you know, getting people to support issues that we were demonstrating in support of. And then that morphed into photography, and I just, this is what, for me, I think a lot of us as reavers, we struggle with finding our place, finding our niche, finding that sense of community. And since I didn't really find it in the mosque, which is another story, I don't know, anyways, I had to make it to myself. And maybe that's, I found that's sad a little bit, because I really had hoped that, you know, I think when we become Muslim, many of us, maybe like I did, I told you I was from a Baptist church background, and it was like a family, so I was looking for my Muslim family. And when I went to the mosque, what happened was I found myself in a predominantly Arab immigrant community, and I found myself upstairs, you know, where the women pray, and found myself the white American reaver, Muslimah. Danger, danger, danger. My husband's gonna want her for a second wife, right? So their mission became to get me married as quickly as possible. And I would finish praying, and I would find myself in a circle with these women. I have a son, I have a son, I have a son. I swear this is true. Last night at the mosque, when we stopped to pray, I was standing there, and a woman came over to me, and she was smiling, and she was so happy, and she hugged me so tight, and she said, welcome, and she was so happy about me, and guess what she said? I have a son. I swear to God. I have a son. And I said, alhamdulillah. That's nice. But I have to go. So I didn't find myself comfortable. As much as I wanted to be, I wasn't finding myself comfortable in the amongst in the mosque amongst the other women. I didn't feel it didn't feel like an inviting atmosphere to me. I was looking to it for support. But again, I was finding that I was going to have to continue to get that support on my own. So what I did, I said, okay, I had a sense of not feeling welcome amongst the women. So I said, okay, I don't need you. And what happened after that, I said, but I'm not going to give up. And I noticed that the mosque, they had numerous activities, you know, different things here and there, or events, and like in Ramadan especially, where they would ask for volunteers for things. So I said, okay, this other situation is not comfortable for me, I'll volunteer. So I started volunteering. That turned out to be one of the best things I could have done, I think, because it let the people get a chance to know me. And it let them feel I wasn't such a threat, you know? I was just this nice person who liked to help and showed up and did her best, and everybody was appreciating. So then I started to become a little bit more comfortable, but I never, to this day, unfortunately, I guess, I'm still not so comfortable at mosques. I love to go. I've been in Saudi Arabia. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a year, and I would go back to Medina in a second, a nanosecond. And I prayed so many times in the Grand Mosque in Mecca, and in those situations, you can't. That's a situation you can never replace. But I think people say about revert Muslims that we take things so literally, you know. Our expectations are too high. We look to people who are born into the religion, practicing the religion, living it their whole life. We look to them for support, for examples, and inspiration even, you know. But what I had to learn about that in the first year was to not focus on that so much, and just focus on continuing to remember what brought me into Islam, what came into my heart about Islam, how it changed my life, how much happier I was, to focus on those things and to not think so much about people. In fact, I had an Egyptian-born Muslim say to me, Aisha, don't pay attention to what Muslims do. And I swear, when I heard those words, I cried. It was, to me, the saddest thing ever. It was the saddest thing ever. I said, how can that be? How? So, I asked some people from my Facebook pages, a lot of reverts there too, what were some things that you would say to other people who are just becoming Muslims? Or to say, if you wanted to have something done differently, what would you do? What I think, instead of us trying so hard to assimilate ourselves into the existing Muslim communities, I would like to see a little bit more education inside those masjids and mosques from the imams, talking to the Muslim communities that they have there, and educating them on how to better approach and welcome and support the new Muslim community. Because there has to be some change there. Dawah, of course, Dawah is part of our obligation, okay? But how do we just go around all the time inviting people to Islam and get on our airplanes and go back to where we live and not care about what's happening to them after? We have to care about what's happening to them after. There has to be a program, there has to be education. We have to help the existing Muslim community understand us. You know, we're trying so hard to know you. You know, don't make us feel that we're not welcome, that we're so foreign, or that we're not really Muslims because we're reverts, or attacking us all the time because we don't do everything exactly the way that you do. That's the thing that I would like to see happen. You know, it's really, really important. And things like this, what NEMA is doing is supporting you, mashallah. You know, mashallah. And to be honest, I actually needed this. you're honoring me to let me speak to you, but I needed you, I swear. And I got to meet so many of you and talk to so many of you and sit beside you and listen to some of your stories, mashallah, you know. You're incredible. And the people who were with you, your families and friends, even that aren't Muslim, that are here supporting you, mashallah, mashallah, what a blessing, what a blessing. I'm the only Muslim in my family. Maybe some of you are the only Muslims in your family. Maybe some of you were ostracized by your families. I didn't have so much of that. My family accepted things pretty well. I have one brother that doesn't talk to me anymore. But inshallah, that will change. But in the process, also a brother that I didn't know for so many years because there was years between us. When I left home to go to university, my smallest brother was only 8 years old. But I had raised him from the time that he was born, so there was such a strong bond between us that years and years later, when we were finally reunited again, there wasn't even words required. It was just like a 30-minute hug and tears, you know. It's just like the two hearts coming together again, you know. And then over time, I was busy traveling and going here and there. He went on with his life, and we lost touch with each other again. And subhanAllah, the internet brought us back together again, Facebook. And so now we've been together, knowing each other again since then, and he's married now. And, you know, alhamdulillah, their minds are so open about Islam. They're not ashamed that I'm their friend on Facebook, you know, and they're non-Muslim families, you know. I know because I'm wearing a hijab in my profile picture, so I know when I make comments on their wall that maybe somebody from their family is saying, who's that, you know? So, but mashallah, they're really open-minded, they ask questions, they read, they're not judgmental at all. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And my daughters, I have 2 daughters. Ashley's 30 and Shannon's 25. Both of them, they love me just the same. I'm their mom, you know. So, alhamdulillah, I didn't have so much problem with the family thing. In fact, when I went home to visit the first time wearing hijab, I was nervous a little bit because my mom was coming out with us to dinner. And I wasn't sure how she was going to feel about being seen in public in a place that I lived. Of course, it wasn't easy for me either, because this was happening in a place that I lived for 18 years. And everybody had known me, you know, that's where I raised my children. And then suddenly I was walking, and that time I wore an abaya and a nice scarf. And we went out to eat, and I kept watching my mom, you know, because I knew, I was like, what if she sees a friend, or what if she, you know, what is she thinking? And I was really, really nervous about her. But she was okay. And then when we were leaving the restaurant, a really beautiful thing happened. We were standing to get out the door, and somebody was walking past us, and a woman, she turned to me and she said, your scarf is so beautiful. And it just made me feel at home again. It was like opening the door at the office and somebody saying assalamu alaikum. Okay, where am I? A little bit more about activism. When I was working for an organization in Washington, D.C. You know, we went from the internet stuff to the writing to attending doing some volunteering. You know, all of this comes around to actually another topic. It's like owning your Islam. A lot of us, we look to our masjid communities, you know, for that support and to become that family. But if you don't find it, don't let that deter you. Own it yourself. Create it yourself. Make it yourself. You know, you can find other ways. I'm living proof you can find other ways. and you'll be okay. And you know what? Where's my paper? I have this paper. Where's my bag? I hope that paper's still here. I wrote this down because I wanted to say this back to you. I saw this on Facebook. I hope it's still here. I didn't leave it on the table. It's a really, really great quote. Because I was nervous to talk to you guys today, of course. It's like I don't know how I got, I'm not a public speaker. I'm not going to talk to you about fiqh. I'm not going to answer those kind of questions. Dr. Fawzal, when he was here for that part, you know, I'm a different thing altogether. I'm going to have to read it from my phone. This is really important. I want to read this because it's really inspiring. And it's like I was saying to you, I'm not, I was asked to come to do this, and I felt, you know, when you take a decision to do something, or you pray istikhara to take a decision to do something, and then you move towards doing it, and everything just opens, and everything's made easy, and your path just, thank you. Everything just, it's just like God's walking in front of you, clearing the way, you know? That's what happened with this event. I was just like, why are they asking me to come? What am I gonna say? And then I found this. It was a thing, it was pink with white lettering. I found it on my news feed on Facebook. It said, there's no need to be perfect to inspire others. Let others get inspired by how you deal with your imperfections. I swear that just touched me. That touched me so much. I was like, I'm all the time about all the things that I'm not. You know, I don't have the university education about. You know, I'm not a scholar. I don't have a PhD. But a good Egyptian friend of mine always says to me when I'm nervous about something, just be Aishah. So I said, okay, I will go and just be Aishah. We'll see what happens. Okay. So I think I know I didn't talk so much about activism, but I think my story is an embodiment of activism because despite the hurdles, despite the frustrations, the limitations, and the language issues, and all of it, I didn't, like all of you, I didn't just give up. I was proactive, and that's the message I think that's important to reverts, to be proactive. Don't be discouraged. You're gonna be discouraged, but get over it. You'll be okay, and just do whatever you can. If all you have is one other Muslim friend, alhamdulillah. Nothing. Another quote, and I found this also on Facebook. What's for you will not pass you by. I like this quote so much. In fact, I had it on the lock screen on my phone for a while because I just kept looking at it like, what's for you will not pass you by. What's for you will not pass you by. God's plan is so perfect for us. And if it means that we're the only Muslim in our family, or we're the only Muslim in our community, that's God's plan. Embrace it. You will be okay. Give it to God. God is with you and beside you always. And don't worry. Just be yourself. Don't ever forget what brought you to Islam. Don't ever forget that feeling in your heart when you made your Shahadah. I heard so many Shahadah stories in the last couple of days. And Pauline, the light shining in her face when I heard hers was just, wow, something. It was like James in the conference room at the office when he made his. Don't ever forget that moment. Don't ever forget that moment. Don't lose that moment. It will carry you through. And don't ever think that you're alone. You don't have to be alone. Maybe physically in person you're alone, but God's with you. God's beside you always. Give everything to Him. Focus on your prayer. Don't forget what's important. The things that brought you to Islam. Don't worry about what people do or other people say. If you get your feelings hurt, just get over it. Go on. Be strong. Be brave. And be the best Muslim you can be.